All right, good morning guys. Next day. Well, I thought I'd show you a quick little setup here. I've already started machining this because we're back to the point where I want to get it done, and there's not that much new that's different than what we've already done. Switched over to the rotary table. Now I did go ahead, I finished machining these out, so they're done to this point. So the only thing that I'm going to do now is I've got to cut the radius on the top here and the radius on the bottom here, and then round the corners. Now if I get knurls, why then I'll go back and I'll cut my slots, or if I don't get, why I'll adapt some of what I got to go in there, and that'll finish the arms up for the most part. But anyway, I've got the first one done already. I've got the first cut done on the top. And what I did to get that was zeroed out my rotary table, and underneath this part is the little template that I'd made before. And what I did with it is I went ahead and drilled and reamed this front hole, which would be this hole right here, and then the two offset points that were down here on the bottom of that template, I went ahead and drilled them with about a number 31 bit, I think is what I set it up for. And I turned one of my little insert pins, just like these that I've been making, and I've made 2 or 3 other ones here to finish out the radiuses on here. But nonetheless, I went ahead and drilled them out, and then I built a insert pin with that size pin in it to index off of. So I went ahead, set that on the table, and offset the table the proper amount for this top radius, and I just worked it back and forth, cutting it down. Once I get this set up, I'll show you a little bit of that machining, but like I say, it's the same thing we've been doing with the rotary table. I'm going to go ahead and do both of these, so when I swap them out, I'll do this one. Then I'll go back, and I've got a dowel here through that goes down into the template to hold that. But then once I finish the outer radiuses on these, I'll go back and change over into the other hole right here, and I don't know if you can see that very well or not. But there's the pin we're using for the outer offset. This hole is used for the inner offset, and we'll set it off the proper amount. And I've zeroed the table out and then just offset it in the Y direction, and I'm just rotating it through and cutting that. So, and I'm running, what about 1100 and something RPM according to what this mill is supposed to be running. I'm running a 2-flute carbide end mill. I'd prefer to have a 4-flute for this, but this is what I've got. So, and this is a brand new end mill, so it's doing a pretty good job. But anyway, I'll get that done, and then we'll set it up, we'll radius the edges, and then these parts are going to be done, and that'll finish up this part of the video. So anyway, I'm going to do one more, well no, I'm not even going to do a cleanup cut on here. We're done with this setup. So we can loosen this up, and we can loosen this up. Pull our pin out that we've got here to index with, and then this one will come free. So that's what it looks like to this point. So before I cut and there'll be some hand blending on the edges. This, as I said before, is just a little bit under 3/4 of an inch. So when I set up the DRO and got my offset dimension, we actually run a little bit farther, and it's still not quite far enough to really blend that. So we'll just blend those by hand, that'll be fine. And then this one goes in the same way. Come on. Someplace here we've got a hole that should line up. There we go. And we go ahead and line up our back edge, which is what we set up in originally as the index point. Double check our positioning. I'm liking that. Okay. And we want this to come back off quite a ways because we don't want any contact with that. this rotary table is going to need some work. I'm not happy with the way it performs at all, but there again, what it is what it is. So depth's already set. Looks like we're good and ready to start cutting this one. Well, I've got the second set done, or the second arm done, and we're going to change our setup here now. So I'll show you what's involved here. And this may be a little bit tricky. I'm not sure I've got quite enough room to really do what I want, but I'm sure we'll make it one way or the other. Now, I'm probably going to rotate this whole assembly around to get a clamp probably off of this hole into this upper side while I machine this. It really doesn't matter where this is positioned on the table as long as I've got my offset the proper amount front to back is all that's really going to matter. So I think, let's see what we end up with here. And this is we still use that as our index pin. But this is the way the two look so far. This is the upper, and then this is our lower. So we want to set this back up with our index pin through here. And before we get too carried away doing that, we want to change our pinholes here. See, this is our little index plug. So it sits right in there just like the rest of them does. That will go in that hole. So let me make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Yep, that's right. So then this just sits in here like this. Now I'd like to be able to get a clamp on this back side some way. Of which I don't know that I've really got a good way to hold that. As we do that, I want to use this back hole too. So let's see what we can do here. If we can grab just the edge of it maybe. There's really not enough room to do that. We may be able to do that. How is that going to look? Still miss our little clamp here. Or still miss our arc on the front. Looks like that's about where that's going to have to go. I think that'll miss everything. And then we can still use this one. Now before I do this, I'm going to mark out where this dimension is supposed to come out. And this is part of their convoluted dimensions here because it's kind of, they're given a dimension off of that corner. No, that's not right. They're giving a dimension off of this point up to where this ends. So we're just going to do a approximate. So it should end just about where our little cut ends up there. There again, not an exact dimension. And I don't know why they give a dimension from there, because if you're working off your radius and you're going to go to however much diameter that's going to be, which should be Well, there really is none. So what we want to do is just come back the same amount. So we kind of on both sides come to the center there. I know it's not very, don't have a very good view of that, but there again, I don't think it's that critical a dimension at all. So if we work off of the numbers, that's all that's going to be important, is to get the proper radius. And that's going to be, okay. Let's just scribe us a little arc there. Actually, not quite even that far. We'll see what that looks like for us. And I think that's going to look pretty good, actually. And we'll clear everything there. Okay, well, let's try that. See what happens. I think we know about where we want to be. So let's run right down here. Now we don't want to cut too deep and cut our little template in half, but so that's what it looks like. We'll just continue to cut that away until we get to our radius and go from there. Well, there's that radius. Let's see if we can clean this up a little bit. Well, that gets our table cleaned off. And we still got one to do. But so far, I'm thinking I'm liking this pretty well here. That's the way it looks. Radius our outside corners here, radius our outside corners here. And I think we're going to have them. So Looks like there so far. That's about all it'll take. I'll do a little bit of finishing just to make sure I've got a good blend. I don't want to have big divots on the side where it looks like I've overrun them. There's that one, that's the bottom. Now we're going to stop right there because we've got a little overage on this side, not quite contacting on there. So we'll finish that out by hand. Anyway, that'll be just fine. This is the way it's going to look. Just like that. These are going to be the top, these are going to be the bottom. I'll go back over and deburr everything and smooth them up a little bit, and then we'll take a closer look at them. The tooling that I built, this was originally the bigger piece of scrap that I had. It's still got all the locations in it. Here you got a better idea of the two holes I set up to index with this little pin on to center it up on the rotary table to get my offsets. And then I just had this drilled and reamed so it matched the front, so it retained that, and then I set it down with clamps. But if I were to ever do another one of these, why, I'll throw this in my little scrap box. Maybe I'll be able to find it, maybe I won't, but chances are I'll never do another one of these projects, you know, another knurling tool like this, although different applications set up on different lathes, you never know. So anyway, that will go with it. This is just a quick and dirty centering pin to set down in the rotary table. So if I'm just doing something quick and dirty that's not that precise, I can set this up either in a collet or in the drill chuck and just center it down over there if I don't want to take the time to index it in. And then made 3 other little pins that I'll throw these in the scrap box or in the box with tooling for the rotary table, and if I ever need them that size or something close to that size, why, I can use them as is. I could turn them on down, any of a number of things. So they just they'll go in the tooling drawer. So anyway, got these arms. I've still got deburring and stuff to do on them. I did clean up my little scarf mark on the bottom side of this, so it looks like it's supposed to. But that's the way they are, top and bottom. Bushing goes in the top. There's no bushing in the bottom. And then the knurls will go out here in these two outer holes. So this is the little, has a pin that goes through, and that's what hooks in right there on these adjustments, so that raises and lowers the bottom. And then we've got a bronze bushing that goes in the top part here that extends out and rides in the slots on the side to raise and lower it. So when it goes together, why, it's going to sit there like that. This one will set in here like that, and just to temporarily hold them in place, we'll stick a pin in each of them, even though they're not, well, the top one's not the right size anyway. So there's the way our jaws work, up and down. And then we have these pieces that go in there. Adjustment knob goes on the top. And that's what we end up with. So I am very, very happy with that. That's going to come out real well. Now I'm very close to the point where I need to decide if I'm going to finish this with a bead blasted or a sand blasted matte finish, or if I'm going to do a high polish on this. Because if I do a high polish on it, when I polish these arms, it's going to make them a little bit narrower. Top and bottoms and things like that aren't going to make any difference, but on these internal surfaces here, why, that will make a difference in thickness. So I might have to narrow down the internal piece if I'm going to do that. So I'll have to make that decision here directly. You know, there's enough work in these, and I am going to blue it. I'll put name and date on it, like I do most of my tooling that I build. And you know, I've invested this much time and energy in it. I probably should do a high polish on them, but they actually wear a little bit better with a matte finish on there. It just seems to hold oil a little bit better, and it doesn't wear the bluing off quite as quickly. So anyway, decisions to be made. But anyway, I'm very happy with that. Next thing will probably be, what are we going to do next? We're probably about due to start on the adjustment mechanism up and down here. There's several little parts that can be made along the way, but the only thing left on the arms will be to cut the slots for the knurls themselves, and they're offset. They have to go a certain direction, one top and one bottom, and they crowd this side, so you've got more room in the lathe. And then they have to be drilled and tapped for the pin retainer that will hold the pins in place. So, and that will probably not be done until I have the knurls build the little locks that go on there underneath, so I can adjust length and or position of that, and then drill and tap them. So anyway, that's kind of what's up next. Like I say, any of these little small parts, I could start working on the bushings for the pins. Now I'm not going to push the brass bushings in, so I want to get everything else. I want to get everything as close as I can where I think it's going to be, because I want to blue it up first, and then I'll put the bushings in, because you can't run brass bushings in your bluing tanks when you hot blue. So there's several little things that I can be working on. I don't know if I'm going to use the free cutting steel they've got for like the knob on top here and the knob here. I may very well either use brass or stainless steel just because. So anyway, hopefully you find that a little bit interesting, a little bit useful, give you some ideas in your shop. And comment suggestions, leave them for me in the comments section for me below, guys. And thanks for taking the time to watch.